Hey guys, welcome back to Blackrock Nissan. Figured I would take this opportunity, and while I'm assembling some units for some guys for the air straightener, to go ahead and do a walkthrough about how to do that. I think you guys tend to be nervous about how to go about doing the process, so I'll just run through the steps. It is really easy, and hopefully this will help some guys and encourage some guys to do this for themselves. So let's talk about what supplies do you need. Well, start off, you need your factory air straightener. So there's the unit. I've got another video showing how to pop that out, remove that. You'll need an MRP Performance 3-inch aluminum straightener, and that's pretty much it right there. Again, I'll talk about that in the other video as well. And then you'll need some jewelry rings that'll help secure it. I use some super glue. Of course, you can use some other things, but this is just really quick. It goes on super thin, but does a good job bonding. I went this route just because I didn't want to intrude into the airflow any more than necessary, and so that puts a real good thin layer on there, but bonds to the aluminum and the plastic and holds it in place. You'll need Dremel, and I use some of the sanding bits, use some of the cutters as well. This is really just to do some finer work. You may not want to do this, especially if you don't have a steady hand, but I'll do this to remove the remaining fins, and I'll show you that here in a second. Needle nose pliers, drill. You'll need a very tiny drill bit, so that's something else that I've got, and that makes the holes for the stainless steel rings. And that pretty much sums it up, but I'll walk through the process. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to take the clippers, and then we're going to cut each and every single one of these fins. Once you do that, the fins will pop out, and then you're just left with the little edges, little flash, if you will, I guess, on there. And then that's going to be the next step. That's what we need to take care of. I take the Dremel, and using either the cutter or using the sander, I will smooth down where those fins were and make that flush. I know it looks rough. I'll even polish it a little bit, which is probably unnecessary, but I do that to eliminate gouges or rough texture. Not that it's going to cause any kind of interference or anything with the airflow. You don't have to go heavy-handed. You just very light on the weight. Just trying to take away minimal amount of material at a time. To help smooth out the remaining rough sections, Plastex is typically my go-to. Spread the Plastex around, and I'm going to try to actually get both sides just to polish it up. But the focus is going to be that inner track. Still looks somewhat rough and grooved, but to the feel of the finger across there, it's very smooth actually. So as air comes across there, there's not going to be any issue there. This is probably the most challenging part, is fitting the straightener into the housing. So 3-inch housing is going to be just slightly larger than what you need, and so what I suggest is you find the side that is going to give you these kind of flat spots, because what that translates into is a section that then you can put those stainless steel rings in. So if you can, get those up to one edge, then this is where you're going to drill one of your holes to go through into that one of those cells. What makes this part challenging, and I did forget to mention this earlier, is that now these are scissors for like doing RC plastic bodies. And so, what we're going to do here, we're going to try to get this fit snug, and then these areas right here that are protruding, we're going to just real easily cut those off. We're going to try to trim this down to where it fits. And it's okay if you have a section that seems like there's a little bit bigger of a gap and such, because overall, dimensionally, you've got still great coverage. Now the needle nose, I use those to straighten these fins out. Then what you're going to do, you're going to try to, it's in there properly. It doesn't matter the orientation, but if you have a preference, then certainly try to orientate it a certain way. With setting this up where it needs to go, where it becomes really challenging is the depth. Now I've already made something here that measures out to be the exact depth needed, and so I can just set that over there inside, and then kind of press on the aluminum section. Now you want to make sure that the outer housing is down flush against a flat surface, and then make sure that you've got the screen there, so that is going to get it exactly at the depth inside the housing needed to make sure that the butterfly on the throttle body doesn't hit it. As we look at securing this into the final portion of the install, we're going to be looking for these sections here that are flat. So what I'll end up doing is I will drill a hole right near here and then put it through this section to clamp that down. And even though I use a little bit of glue, those C-rings is ultimately what holds this in place. And I try to get at least 3, if not 4, if I can. So here will be one. I'll probably put one here. I know that's pretty close, but I'll probably put that there. And then this looks like probably a close spot here, so I may drill right there. So there's plenty of sections here, as I said, at least 3, if not 4. Use some of those stainless steel rings, and of course we'll get to that in a second. But once this is secured, then what we're going to have to do is trim this outside about 40 degrees, 45 degrees, because on the inside of the neck of the intake manifold, it actually shrinks down a little bit in size. And so if this was left like it is, then it's not going to fit in there properly. Now as we drill into this, that aluminum is really soft, so you're going to have to drill steady and slowly, but it will go through. So now that we've got those holes drilled, we need to take these rings, and I usually split them in 2. You don't need, you're not going to use this whole ring, so find the cut in it and then split it, and now you've got 2 pieces. This is also where the needle nose pliers comes into play, because what we're going to do here is where we've cut these holes, we're going to insert these rings into the metal. and then clamp them down. I don't know if you can see in there or not, but we've got it in there. Now we're going to spin that around. Then you're going to use the needle nose to clamp that down into place. Actually, afterwards you want to set it back and make sure that it's in the proper position. So when they're finally clamped down, again, they're going to be facing forward, and that puts a lot more surface area towards the front of the screen to hold that into place. All right, so once you have the anchors in and you've got those tightened down, so now we've got two things. One, we're going to straighten out, we're going to go around and make sure that we're straightening any kind of fins that have gotten bent in the process or anything. Anything to stand out, and then we're going to have to trim these at a 45. So what I'm talking about here, and some of these are going to be more challenging than others, but I'm talking about basically taking and cutting, just like that. Now I'm going to clean that up, of course, and maybe to accomplish that you're going to have to come at it from this side and trim that down. That's okay. Then what you cut, you can bend. You kind of take it back and forth, and then that's going to come off. That's going to leave us that angle. To help clean up after you trim, one of the things I do is I take the Dremel and I go ahead and try to cut it at an angle, and that way it helps to get around the clip, the retainer clip here. But it also, if I can hold it at an angle, then basically as I rotate this, I can keep pretty consistent angle through there. And it's going to look off on certain sections just because the way the honeycomb is, but that's okay. Again, there's plenty of surface area here. It's going to be better probably to maybe trim it at a little bit too much of an angle, even just to make sure that it doesn't hit the inside of the intake manifold neck when you reinsert this. And certainly if you should test fit, and if that happens, again, just go around it with the Dremel, see where that looks like it's hitting, and just trim that down a little bit more. And certainly you can see there's a lot of flash there, so I'm going to show you how to clean that up next. If you've got a small file set, this is the perfect tool for getting in there and cleaning up those edges. So I use a square and round style file, and I'm just going to go through here. I'm doing two things. One, I'm cleaning off all the flash where I've cut. The other thing I'm doing is I'm going to straighten out any fins that have gotten somewhat twisted or warped, so I'm going to clean all that up as well. Then we're going to take some super glue, and we're just going to apply it right around the outside here to help hold those clips on the outside, and doing that all the way around. I suggest holding it this way because if you don't, potentially that glue can run down inside of this area, and then you're going to have a really sticky mess that's going to be very challenging to clean up. And then what you'll do is you'll come, and in here you'll do the same thing with each section where there's a ring the stainless steel little ring, and so you'll put a little dab of glue in there. Any section that also makes really good contact inside there, inside the housing, you'll come in, put just a little dab of glue in there, make sure that it spreads out down along where the aluminum touches the plastic, and again get around where all those little stainless steel clips are in there, and then rest it this way so that any excess glue is going to drain out the back, and then sit and let it dry. And that should pretty much be it. Once it's dried, just take it out, test fit it, trim up any areas that look like they're sticking on that intake manifold neck. Just lightly trim that up, and you should be good to go. If you have any questions, just let me know. Take care.